All right, everybody. So today we're gonna finish chapter 4, and then based on previous discussions, we're gonna be having study hall next class, and try to do some catch up in case you've fallen behind in some topics. So that's a good thing. I totally agree with Brooke on that. So for today, I'm gonna talk quickly about PEP or PEP. And a way of doing it that's really easy, of making your code compliant with that, and then discuss the homework that we had assigned for today. So let's get into the PEP thing real quick. As you remember from your book, pages 189 all the way to pretty much almost to the end, 193, it showed you that you can, the PEP 8 standard is a way of making the code uniform across, different Python developers. It's not mandatory. You don't have to be PEP compliant. The language itself, Python, kind of forces you to have some sort of editing format that's kind of standardized. If not, it doesn't run, right? Like you cannot mix tabs with spaces. I'm sorry, tabs with, with spaces. It won't work, right? You have to indent things so it to work. But PEP also applies further, not indentations, what I'm looking for, further strictness in a sense to make the code easy to read for others, right? Make it standard. Now, they tell you to use PI test, so it will tell you what parts of your code are not compliant so you can change them. Now, as a good forensicator and coder, I will tell you that I'm not lazy, I'm efficient, okay? So what does that mean? I like to use a thing called Black, all right? It's a nice little module you can get. Let me see if I can make this maybe more. What is it? It's command, where is it? Sorry, bigger. Command plus. All right, let's do it. Command plus. Wrong thing. Not clicking on, there we go. Here. All right. All right, Brooke, is that better? Can you see that? All right, hopefully we can. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna download Black, and we're gonna run our code through Black so we can see how it makes those changes for you and make it, a variant of PEP8 compliant. So let's do that, and it'll make sense. I'm gonna copy here my homework, the folder. I call it multiple functions. So that's my homework. I'm gonna copy it so I have a second version of it. So I got multiple functions and multiple functions too. It's the same code, okay? And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do pip3 because I'm on a Mac that has Python 2. So I need to tell, I wanna install using pip3. And I'm gonna install pip install Black, okay? And what it's doing is running through it, getting all the information, and successfully install Black. Perfect. So we got it. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move over to the copy of the folder that I did so I can run it and then make comparisons. So I'm gonna open a tab at that folder. Let me make this larger again. Perfect. All right, so let's see what we got here. I got a couple of scripts that are Python, and I'm gonna run it through Black. So the way we do that is after it's installed, you're gonna write, okay, Python 3, and I wrote it as a module. I'm gonna say Black, and I'm gonna give it the directory. So again, lazy, not efficient. I just drag it in, and it puts the path to the folder that I want, and I hit enter. As you will see, it's going through it, and it tells you, okay, I went through this Python files, and I reformatted those 3 files. And look, it gives me a nice little stars and cake. All right, I always find that cute. Right, so what happened? So let's compare it. I got my original in this folder, and I got my reformatted one by Black on the other. So let's open the simple one. Okay, so we got one there. Let me open the next one. Oh, sorry about the messing screens. This one didn't do any changes. Let's look for the other one. This one. There we go. This one is better. All right, let's go up. All right, so this is my original, right? You see my different definitions and different code here. If you compare it over to the other one here, it changes, right? Now this argument indented it this way, right? There's some differences there. And the point I'm making with this is that if you have if you're working in code that a lot of, let me rephrase. If you're working on a project that has a lot of coders in it, it'll be good to tell everybody, look, whenever you're done your coding, run it by black, so everybody can have like a same format of how things are done, okay? Personally, I don't use it that much because pretty much I just code by myself or with a select, 2 or 3 people. So, it's fine. But big projects, this is one way of doing it. This is one way of making your code, PEP 8 variant compliant, and that's take care of that, okay? I think it was pretty easy. Download and run against your scripts, or your folder where the scripts are. If that makes sense, give me a 1. If there's any questions, also feel free to ask. Either type it in the chat or talk. All right. So
a few ones were, so I'm just trying to think of questions for myself then, because I might still be a 0, to be honest. So I get black from, say it one more time, I'm sorry because of my sound issue, I might have missed it. Where do I get black from?
So when you use pip install, this is a service, right? Okay. That it actually goes pull it, but I pull this through the network. Let's say you don't want to do it that way. Let me just Google here, Python, I can't write, Python black.
And somebody is asking, is it run via Python shell or bash/cmd?
I mean, Python it's you can run it as a script or as a module. So either, any way you run scripts with Python, you can do it that way.
Oh, so I can, okay, yeah, that's right. So I can download it from, if I have a computer that's not connected to the internet, for example, I can just download it from here, put it on.
Yeah, which is what I'm showing you here, actually. So you hit download files here, and it will give you a WHL file. I'll say what?
Sorry, somebody said you can run the pip at CMD. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. CMD, if you're in a Windows, in this case it's terminal because I'm on a Mac, but absolutely, it's the same command. If you only have just Python 3 on your computer, maybe you can just write pip, that's it. In this case, the way I installed Python 3 on my Mac computer, the command has to be pip 3 for Python 3. If I only use pip by itself, then it downloads the software for Python 2. Does that make sense, Brooke, more or less?
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense to me.
So here you can download the wheel file, WHL, and put it on a thumb drive, then put it on the other computer, and then hit pip install, and then point to this file, the wheel file, and it will install. Okay.
Got it. And everyone else got that too. Put a 1. You get that? I think there were a few 1s missing before on that side. I think we're okay. Oh, there we go.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. So black is a pretty cool way of getting that formatting or your uniform across all your script. You can do it for yourself. It's not a bad idea. I recommend it when you're working with a lot of people on projects, so everybody can be, have the same formatting. Everybody using double quotations or single quotations in the places they should use them, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so that's that with PEP or PEP, and that covers all those pages. And I like it better because it not only it changes it for you. Here on PY test, you have to be messing with it yourself. And again, I'm not lazy, I'm efficient. Now, homework. So for homework, what we had planned, or not planned, what was this required was create 2 functions, one to parse your SQLite database, and another function to parse your JSON file for Discord, and then a function that could print to a file or to a screen, or and do both. Now, the thing with that is there is an infinite way of implementing those requirements of having 2 functions that parse and 1 function that prints to a file. And how to implement it is infinite. So there is no wrong answers. I'm gonna give you my answer, but there's no wrong answers as long as the script does what it needs to do. Now, that being said, that goes to a topic of a code design, right? If you're doing a one-off script, that's fine. But if you're doing scripts that you wanna build on, it's always to think ahead of what your future requirement might be, so you can accommodate to them. And I will give you an example of that, okay? I'm gonna quickly go over, see if I can make this full screen. There we go. I want to show you the code Jay put out on the Discord. Okay.
I think it's down more.
Hmm?
I noticed that earlier too. Is that down? I think it might be down more. Oh no, never mind. It's up. You never mind. Oh, never mind.
Yeah, you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to discuss his quickly, and then I'm going to discuss mine quickly because I want to show you how there's no wrong answers. You know what I mean? Like as long as the thing does what you intended to do, there's multiple ways of doing things. And honestly, without us talking, we came to pretty much 99% of the same code, pretty much. All right. So, and again, props to him for sharing, and I appreciate that. So you see here that he starts, his main script is this one here that I highlighted. And look how clean it is, right? You do an import from your functions, and then he calls the kick message function and provides it an argument, which is the file he's looking for. Then he provides another function. Oh, I'm sorry. And then he returns that data to this variable. And then the write function takes that variable and then passes this string with it. So it's 2 arguments, right? Ignore the part here on the bottom. Notice how this code has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines, 7 lines. But behind it, there's a whole bunch of other code that actually does the work for you. So when I mentioned previously that using function is an abstraction, this is what I meant. Your main script is really short, it's 7 lines, but all the work is done by the functions kind of behind the scenes. That's why it's abstracted. It makes easy for me to write code on it. If I wanna, every time I wanna parse a kick message, I just call the function. I don't have to mess with any of this stuff that's back here because Jay abstracted it for me underneath the function, okay? And I'm using these words so you get used to what the language that goes with coding, how it sounds, okay? So that's what we mean by abstractions with functions, right? If that makes sense, give me a 1. All right, perfect. All right, so he did the same thing here. He calls his Discord function, provides it the file name, and then he returns to this variable, and then he sends that return over to the write function with a string with it. And again, by looking at it, I can assume .txt. I assume this is the file name he's gonna give to his file that he's gonna write. Okay, so, I had a couple of questions on pathing. Notice here that he's providing only the name of the file because the assumption is that the file and the script are gonna be in the same directory, okay? So this will work as long as both files are in the same directory. If you move the file away, it won't find it. You would need to do 1 or 2 things, or provide a full path, which is you're in Windows, C/user/ blah, 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 to where your file is, or use a relative path, which is why I was on the script that I provided, you saw a little dot. That means in this directory, / and then the folder / whatever I'm looking for. So, and again, this is kind of out of scope, but if you're not familiar with relative pathing in operating system, then Google that, okay? And if you feel that you want me to talk about that, then put it on the Discord or send a message and we'll make space for that, okay? Relative pathing or paths in operating systems, both Windows and Mac, it's all good. So we can discuss that later. Okay, but for now, we're gonna assume that the scripts are on the same location as the data that we're gonna parse. Okay, so what does he do? And I'm gonna go quickly to his code because I want to compare it with mine quickly. So here's his function, the kick one, and the argument is gonna be called file name, right? So when he calls the function up here, the file name, right? This argument is positional. It's gonna go and be go inside this variable called file name. And then he's gonna connect to that file name, which again is this file here. And he's gonna execute the code. This part you should know. And again, I'm not gonna discuss how this works because we discussed it before, but if you wanna discuss it again, we can do it on Thursday during study hall and all those things. I'm gonna highlight, he does his query. He has a list, an empty list that he's gonna receive all the data, and he puts it here when he does the append, right? So he's parsing and going to each data row, he's appending it to his list, which is perfect. I did the same thing. And then he closes the databases, and then he returns that list over, right? Because he wants to then provide it to the right function, which I'm gonna go down here. The right kick function is right here, right? Messages, that's the list. File name is how the file name is gonna be called. When you open that file name, if it doesn't exist, it will create it. It's gonna be writable. He has the file handler, he called it FP. And then for each item in his list, he's gonna, using the handler, write this, 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 and that, okay? I should have said also that he's going through his data, he's sending it to the screen as it was required, okay? If that makes sense, give me a 1. Okay, and this is well done, right? He has one function for writing the kick messages and one function for writing Discord. Now, what did I do? Is this one? Yes, okay. And I need also my functions. Let me go get them. There we go. So I'm gonna start, there we go. All right, so I'm gonna start with my functions here. Notice that I got my JSON parser, and again, I did like him. I have a list to get my data, and well, actually, let me start with the SQLite, so it makes says it's apples to apples. Okay, so I call my function SQLite parser. I provided, you know, where the file is. I called it data list to my list to receive the output from the query. Here's my query. And just like Jay, I did, I print to the screen all the rows that I need, and I put them to my list, and then I return my list. So me and him on here, we're like 100% the same in this process. All right. Now, my script here on the path is a little bit different. I use relative pathing. All right. Notice this dot. So from in the folder the script is, right, in this folder, that's the dot, I want the import directory, and inside of it is gonna be my file, okay? And then I wanna put my reports, that's the full path out, that same directory where the script is, in a folder called output, and it's gonna be called Discord chat JSON blah, 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 okay? I did the same thing for the kick databases, okay? And remember, Python is read from top, bottom, left to right. So I import my functions. I tell them, okay, the path where my file is here with my file. I want you to give me my output at this file and name like as so. And I'm gonna execute my parser for JSON that's in this location in full path and give me the results. And then I have a function to print to a file that will take the path out, so where it's gonna be written to, and the results, right? That list, that's for it. This is the same as Jay, pretty much 99%. Now notice this. When I run my kick database, I use the same function to print out. You notice that? I did not decide to make 2 functions to print it out. Let's look at that function. And then I'll tell you the teaching point. My function, I received the path out where it's gonna be written to. I have the results, right? That list. I opened that file just like Jay did, and I went a little bit farther. I used a module called, let me show up here, CSV, all right? This module allows me to create CSV files, right? It could be comma delimited or tab delimited. I mean, you can delimit it with anything you want, right? So I have CSV. I'm gonna use the functionality called writer. It's gonna take the file handler, and I'm gonna delimit each item with a tab. And I'm gonna put it here in this variable, okay? And then I'm gonna write it to where it needs to go, all right? Now this code I will explain in more detail in a second. I could have done like Jay and just write straight to the file and it wouldn't be wrong. Here I'm using, I like to do a lot of CSV files because I find it really nice to be able to put in Excel, because a lot of the people analysts that work with my data, they like to put it in Excel. It's funny, the most popular forensics tool is Excel, of all things. Okay, so I decided to do a CSV file and tab delimited. And why tab delimited? Because sometimes when you deal with data that's, let's say, a chat, and the person uses quotations or single quotations in the conversation, that will mess up your delimitation of your file. So I tend to go tab. Actually, Troy Snacks is kind of like, I read him doing that and I copied him because it's a good idea. Right, but the teaching point is this. It's not so much to, and we'll discuss it, just not today. We'll discuss it tomorrow, Thursday, and some other days. We'll discuss this, how do you do those CSV files, we'll discuss later. But the point, the teaching point, the important thing to remember is, I'm using one function to handle all the writing of my other functions. And that's the good idea of functions, because it allows you to do code reuse. Instead of having to write, you know, these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines of code every time you do something, anytime you want to write a file, you can make it a function and then call it as you need it. Notice that I'm feeding it the list. The list of results could be 10 items, could be 100 items, could be 1,000,000 items. But my function will take each item one by one and print them as needed, okay? So at this point, this function becomes multi-use, right? Or general use. Any list that I want to put it in my CSV format, each item in that list in a CSV format, there you go. You can do it that way, okay? And that's a big teaching point. Think of functions as abstractions and think of functions as a way of reusing code, okay? I saw a question here. How do you find the wrong names if dealing with a database you haven't never worked with? Okay, excellent, great point. Let me go back here. Notice that, look, actually, right here. Look at your query here, right? Like I mentioned with JSON, the way to parse data, you have to do some research before you start coding, right? You need to look at that JSON file and try to understand what are the relationships, the key value relationships. And of those, which ones are you looking for? Same thing with SQLite. When you look at a database, you need to understand which tables you care for and which values in that table you might need. And sometimes to be able to do that, because there's no, when we do forensics, there is no, more times than not, that app doesn't have a guide that explained how they coded it and how the values are populated in the database. That doesn't exist. We're kind of reverse engineering it. So that means you need to have a test phone, if it's a phone, for example, put data on the thing, and then data that you know, and then do the dump and look at the database. And then in that way, you can figure out, okay, the data that I know about is landing in these tables and in these fields. Or it might be landing in more than one table. Then I need to join them so it makes sense. And that's the part of the testing validation process. And that's totally independent of coding. It's just understanding your data sets. When you understand your data sets, then you code it and make it repeatable, okay? Which means that for future apps, that script will work, right? Unless it's a version change. But assuming there's no version change or a version change that changes the database, it's repeatable. You can use that script constantly on other devices, okay? So this goes to your research. So what I did was I opened the database, I figured out that these are the things that I wanted, and I made my query, okay? Yes. All right, so those are the main takeaways. I import my functions, I import them all. So it means that each of these def entries are gonna be accessible by the main script. And I made one print function that's of general use that the other ones can use it, right? The second teaching point of the functions that I wanna bring up. Notice how I did the data list. And actually, let me see how Jay did it. I think he did it the same way that, yeah, the same way as I did. Okay, notice this. Sorry, let me see, where is it? There we go. I initialized my list, and then I use Append to add values to it. This is not new. We discussed this a few classes back. And notice that I have like double parentheses here. Why is that? The reason for that is I want in each location for each location in the list, right? For each index of that list, I want all these values, all of them, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to be inside index location 0. For the next item, I want all of those to be index location 1 and continue like that, right? So I'm not adding this result in 0, this in 1, this in 2 within the list, right? I'm not doing that. I'm putting them all as one unit, right? Does that make sense? This parentheses, the internal parentheses, group this as a single unit that will be placed and appended to the list in one index location. All right. So for that to make sense, this is what I'm gonna do. Let's run this script and let's send something to the screen. I'm gonna do a couple of things here, so that teaching point comes across. Let's put actually, yeah. So what I'm doing here, I'm commenting this code because I don't want it to be sent to screen. I only want to see the other thing I want to see on screen is my my results. Data list is sent to results list. So I'm gonna just print that out. Let's see if this works. Thank you, editor, for adding it for me. Let's do this one. Let's run it. All right, notice this. So this is the contents, right, of the list that my script provided. Notice it's a list because it starts with the brackets and then the first parentheses, right, to the comma. That's my first index location. That would be results list 0. And if you don't believe me, then let's do it. You see that results list 0 has this data, this data, this data, and this data. Okay. And if I put results list 1, it changes to the next piece of data, right? And I'm showing you this because think about how your data structures work, and how can you make those data structures work for you? Okay, and Jay and myself, we agreed independently to for each discrete data points, and I say discrete data points to mean that all this timestamp, author, chat, and content, they're all related to one particular event in time. So I want them all in one item of my list. And then the next timestamp, author, chat, and channel in another one, and so forth. Okay, let me put this back as it was. So one way of doing that is thinking about how you work with lists. You define your list, you do the append as normal, and then if you have a parentheses, you can have all the data that you want inside the parentheses, right? You can put inside of here, you could have put a dictionary if you needed to. I don't know, maybe your data would have been better like this, like a dictionary. I don't know. It depends on your data and how you understand it to be organized, so then you can code it and parse it so it makes sense to a person that doesn't know how to code, because that's the ultimate purpose. You want to take the artifact, parse it, and give it to somebody that doesn't know how to code, but still be able to understand what the artifact is telling them. Okay. Yeah, Jay just said we did a list of lists. That's correct. Our list, our data list, in my case, has inside each row a little tiny list of items that are related to each other. And that's what was one way of organizing it. Second teaching point on the list part. Remember, functions are designed to return one thing. So if you want to return more than one thing, return an object. And by object, I mean like a list, a data structure, a dictionary. You can have all the things that you need inside a dictionary, all the things that you need inside a list. And that's how we kind of go around that limitation of returning only one object out of a function. Okay. Questions and comments on that? If that makes sense, give me a 1. All right. I don't know how you all did your homework, but again, think about how can you abstract it. Okay, how can you take that, at least for example, the print one, and how to make it general use, that all your parsing scripts can just print to the file, without having to have a function for each artifact to print, right? And you should be good. Yes, I will post my solution on Discord. Although Jace is pretty much, like I said, 99.9 the same as mine. But I will post this as well. Actually, I will. What I'll do is I'll provide the files themselves, so then you can download and run them, or you don't have to copy paste them over to your script. Now, the time has run. Actually, I went 5 minutes over. But for Thursday, depending on how it goes on Thursday, I want to show you. I will show you, if not Thursday, next Tuesday. I mean, there's no hurry in that sense. I'm gonna show you here quickly my more advanced version of that script, and just as a preview. Actually, I'll have my arguments here. Let me not do that. Let me just run it first. So let me do this real quick. Where is it? Let me open another tab here. Okay, so this is the preview of what we're going to be discussing shortly. How it has to do with functions. I'm in the right place, right? I have a script that's a little bit more advanced. That's the same thing, but it's a little bit more advanced. It's called kick Discord parser, and I know you all seen this before. Notice that I called my script and it told me, hey, there's usage things you need to consider. This script, you can use use help to get more information. It requires an input path. It requires an output path. Okay, and it tells you, hey, you have an error when you need these arguments. You need the input to provide the script, an input and an output. Why am I showing you this? Because scripts themselves can receive arguments in the same way that your functions receive arguments. Okay, and I'm going to show you, moving forward, how to do this. And this is really important. If you want your scripts to play nicely with other framework, with other scripts, or to extend them, this is one way, and to run them command line, right? That you don't have to be like script them. Then this is the way of doing it. Okay, you have your script, receive some arguments that are needed, and then moving forward, you don't have to really do much other than hit a button and it goes. Okay, and it is something that yes, from my perspective, I want to have the user provide as little input as possible and have my script handle everything. Last point, there are tools like, for example, and again, I don't get any money for mentioning forensic products here, okay? So I'm not endorsing and I'm not promoting anything. As an example, Magnet Forensics is a product called Magnet Automate. And what that does is it can run for you in a workflow different tools and even scripts. And if the scripts that you do, you're able to provide arguments like that, then you can put it in that workflow and it automates your forensic work. Okay, and I know I'm saying a lot that you might not be getting, but trust me, this is great. Having your scripts be able to receive arguments is fantastic. It makes my life easier if I want to use it within my own workflows in the future. Okay. All right. Does the next steps or arguments make sense? Now that you understand that functions receive arguments, right, to work with, does it make sense that your script itself can receive arguments to do things with them? Does that make sense? If that makes sense, give me a 1. Okay, and we'll be discussing that, if not Thursday, because we have the study hall or study group, then Tuesday or moving forward. And I'll show you my script, how I implemented that and other nice little things. So that's all I got for today. I'm gonna stop the recording.